Yes.
Jerry Pittsford,
Yes.
Julie Thomas. Yes. Amy Thompson,
Yes.
Margaret Clemens.
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimous.
Thank you very much. Our first item of business is under the heading of administrative business. This is SPP 22-8, Southern Meadows Subdivision Phase 2 through 6, preliminary plat extension. This is 78-acre parcel, 78 parcels on 33.4 acres in section 20 of Perry Township between South Roger Street and South College Drive. So this is a request for extension, and Mr. Myers are you done this, Jackie?
I'm going to handle this one since
All right,
Mr.
go
Myers
right
is
ahead.
out. Yeah, and I'll just make a note also that our county attorney, Dave Schilling, is joining us via Zoom. So if you have any questions, look to the Zoom screen for Dave's input. So this is the extension request for phases 2 through 6 for Southern Meadows. They've final platted phase 1 of the subdivision. And so they have until 2024 to finish out the entire subdivision without an extension. And tonight they're asking for an extension of 2 years, which does not require a public hearing. It just requires a public meeting to approve this request.
Okay. Do we have anyone to speak on this?
I can just show a few visuals just so you know
Okay.
where we're talking about. So this is the preliminary plat for all phases. We're talking about phases 2 through 6. And this is the current GIS of the property. This is taken in February, so it's a little bit behind of 2022. So phase 1 has been final platted, but as you can see, phases 2 through 6 have yet to be final platted. So staff is recommending approval for the preliminary plat extension. And I do believe that there are people here to speak if you would like. But again, since this is not a public hearing for this item, it's just for the Plan Commission to consider under administrative business for you to vote on.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Since this is fairly straightforward, I won't ask the petitioner or petitioner's representative to come forward, but if there's anyone on the Plan Commission who would like to ask questions, please let me know and I'll bring those folks forward. Okay, there doesn't seem to be any. So do I have a motion on the request for preliminary plat extension at Southern Meadows Subdivision?
I move approval on SPP 22-8, the Southern Meadows Development Company's subdivision phase 2 through 6 preliminary plat extension.
I'll second.
Okay,
I have a motion and a second. Jackie, please call the roll.
sure. The motion is in favor of approving SPP 22-8, which is a 2-year preliminary plat extension for Southern Meadows subdivision. Jerry Pittsford,
Yes.
Jeff McKim,
Yes.
Margaret Clemens,
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Julie Thomas,
I think it matters, yes.
Amy Thompson.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimous.
Thank you. Our next item on business is under unfinished business. This is REZ 22-4, Young Trucking Construction Shop rezoned from general industrial to heavy industrial. This is 8.5 acre parcel in Richland Township, section 36, located at 1238 North Loesch Road. And the owner is Arrow Properties. And again, we have Drew Myers presenting, but I think Jackie's going to stand in again.
Yes. So this is unfinished business, so we're resuming the public hearing. So we'll start taking public comment, beginning with this petition. So this is a petition that has gone through the Plan Review Committee and has gone to the Plan Commission prior. So this is a final hearing. On May 12th, 2022, the Plan Review Committee forwarded a positive recommendation of the petition with a vote of 5-0, with two recommendations: that the petitioner limit some of the uses on the subject property that are currently permitted under heavy industrial zone by way of written commitment, and that those uses to be excluded could include garbage, rubbish removal facilities, rock crushing, wastewater, water treatment facility, and adult-oriented business. So their request is to rezone the property from general industrial, which is a chapter 833 zoning district, to heavy industrial, which is a chapter 802 zoning district. The purpose of this is to provide the correct zoning for the use of a trucking terminal. And this was confirmed by a use determination as well as an administrative appeal request, which affirmed the use determination that the use would be a trucking terminal. The trucking terminal is defined as highway type property carrying vehicles, which may include truck maintenance facilities, and has one condition: that the site be screened with landscaping or opaque fence or wall to a height of at least 6 feet. So this property is off of Loesch Road. It is adjacent to the Karst Farm Greenway. The site itself is fairly flat, and as I mentioned, it's zoned general industrial, surrounded by light industrial and limited industrial. And in the comprehensive plan, this area is designated as employment. The property is part of a platted subdivision, and they have done a topographic survey of the area. This is an as-built. Previously, they were issued a grading permit to add a parking, or it was, the purpose of the grading permit was to fill the area and put sod on top of it for later use of the site. And the as-built is showing that the location of the gravel on the site is a little bit different than when the grading permit was originally issued, but this would all be resolved if they get to the site plan stage. We would be able to review the full site in relation to any easements or issues. So here is some images of the area. The trucks parked in the background of that upper left-hand photo are actually on an adjoining property, Spartan Nash. So this site is currently vacant. And then the size of the site is considerable. Under their attachments for the rezone, it's my understanding that they intend on keeping a lot of the forested areas towards Loesch to be preserved, but they would utilize a good portion of the site for the use if approved. And just some more site photos of the area that has been graded under a grading permit. So the petitioner's representative is Chelsea Moss, and they have requested that the rezone be approved. They've also included a letter of commitment, which would exclude the uses central garbage, rubbish, remote garbage, rubbish removal, wastewater treatment facility, water treatment facility, an agricultural sale barn, and a bottled gas storage distribution. At the prior administrative meeting, there was a discussion about rock crushing, and they included an image of a mobile rock crusher that could be utilized on different construction sites. And my understanding is that the petitioner's representative is wanting to comment and take some questions and talk a little bit more about the rock crushing use in collaboration with what the business use will be. So here is the petitioner's draft site plan that they've attached as part of the rezone. If the rezone were to go through, they would actually file a formal site plan. So at this point, you are looking at this rezone request as an ability to use any of the heavy industrial uses except for those that are being excluded. But what they have put together as an attachment is for a trucking terminal. And then in the packet, you'll also find the list of permitted uses under the general industrial as well as the heavy industrial zoning district so that you can see the differences between them. And Drew has gone through and added stars to the ones that are very similar from the general industrial to the heavy industrial as well. So the staff recommendation for this rezone is to send a positive recommendation to the Board of Commissioners with one condition that the petitioner record the written commitment limiting some of the uses on the subject property that are normally permitted under the heavy industrial zoning district as recommended by the Plan Review Committee. And I can take any questions that you have.
Sorry. Any questions for staff? Too many buttons on that thing. All right, if not, are we all willing to hear from petitioner's representative? Okay, Chelsea, if you would, please. And just so everybody knows, I'm not being overly familiar. Chelsea was my student back years ago.
And tech services, if you wouldn't mind having a timer available just for the comment period, that would be perfect. Thank you.
Good evening. So I know we've talked about this project a few times now. So one of the big things that came up the last time was talking about this mobile rock crushing capability. So the big use of this would be at the beginning during construction. But in talking with my client, they have had instances where they would occasionally want to use this on the site after they started operating. This unit is typically taken to a job site. Crushing is done as they're doing demolition or excavation on a construction site. And then the machine would just be brought back to the equipment yard. Occasionally in tight confines, they can't do the crushing. One example is the new parking garage here in town. That project, they couldn't do the crushing literally right down the road here. So they had to do it offsite at their location, crush it, and then they stockpile it temporarily until it's used on another site. He is planning on constructing a hoop style building for temporary material storage and coming to and from different job sites. And this would be one of the types of materials that would be stored in that. But by excluding that rock crushing capability, our concern is that he would not have that flexibility on projects when it's needed. It's not a common occurrence, but having that flexibility is a concern.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Chelsea? All right. Have you seen this machine work?
I have not seen it in person work.
Okay. All right. I didn't know if you had an idea of what the noise level is associated with it. And would it just be operating during normal business hours?
It would just be operating during normal business hours and within the sound ordinance limitations of the area. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
This would not be operating at overnight or anything like that.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to comment in favor of this petition? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to this petition? Please identify yourself and sign in.
Hi, my name is Doug McDaniel. I'm president of Scientia LLC and also the managing member of Interchange Investments LLC. Good
Go ahead.
evening, and thank you for the opportunity to voice my objection to the petition filed by Aero Properties LLC to rezone its property at 1238 North Loesch Road. I'm with Interchange Investments LLC, and we own the property at 1252 North Loesch Road, which is immediately north of and adjacent to Aero's property. Our company, as Scientia LLC, provides software engineering for many DoD customers. We partner with NSWC Crane and other government activities to provide high-tech persistent surveillance systems that help keep our warfighters safe and protect our nation's critical assets. A vast majority of our 35 professionals work in our Bloomington office at the Interchange Investments Facility. We wish to continue providing a clean, safe, and quiet environment for them as they execute their important national defense work. I respectfully request that the Plan Commission deny Arrow's petition. The heavy industrial designation should not be allowed at this location. We certainly don't need the additional traffic and noise from a trucking terminal in an area that's relatively quiet and pristine. In any case, the ability to utilize a stone crusher at this location should be strictly forbidden. It's fairly common to see some of our employees outside enjoying lunch at a picnic table or playing a game of horse at our outdoor basketball goal. My hope is that we can continue quiet and peaceful enjoyment of those activities well into the future. According to an article by the Trade, Health, and Environmental Impact Project, trucking terminals expose neighboring communities to air pollution from diesel exhaust and particulate matter. They also negatively affect communities by causing traffic congestion, safety issues, pavement damage, and noise. The article further states that heavy trucks use diesel fuel and emissions contain diesel particulate matter, which is regulated as a toxic air contaminating California, based on studies showing lung cancer in exposed truck drivers. The US EPA also says DPF is likely to be a carcinogen. Trucks also release dust from brake pads and pulverized tire rubber, adding to the particulate pollution in the air. Truck air conditioning units commonly release refrigerants, which are greenhouse gases that contribute to global warming. These significant concerns are why I object to Arrow's rezoning petition. Most importantly, I contend that under no circumstances should Arrow be allowed to operate a stone crusher at this location. One article on the harmful effects of stone crushing includes the following, and I quote, "Its different operations cause significant environmental impacts, including air and noise pollution in the vicinity, as well as vibration effects far off. Major health effects in workers of the industry were hearing problems, skin irritation, and respiratory problems. So in addition to the unwanted settlement of particulate matter on our building, vegetation, and automobiles, the existence of a stone crusher immediately to our south could present serious health issues for our employees, as well as those of neighboring businesses." Even
Thank
though
you,
the petition-
sir. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't stop you. Your time is out. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? There appearing to be none. I'll bring it back to the Plan Commission for further discussion or a motion. Mr. McKim.
Yeah, I guess my question is really to my colleagues here. How to what degree does your vote on this petition hinge on the rock crushing? I mean, I can see arguments for and against allowing the rock crusher, but if that's the only way it's going to go through, then despite the fact that the petitioner is opposed to that, we should exclude rock crushing as a use. So I guess I'm wanting to hear what others' comments are.
Does anyone wish to address that? Is there anyone on Zoom who wishes to address that? Okay, do we have any other questions?
More of a comment, but I kind of feel the same way. That's the first time I heard someone, remonstrate against the whole petition, particularly the rock crushing. So, that's a factor in itself to look at the whole rezone as a whole and decide on kind of the uses that they're not going to, or that they're committing not to have. And then the one that's still out there that I think is really some of the determination or the determining factor of where we go with this. So I guess I'm going to leave it to some of my colleagues to, move this forward. I'm indifferent. I think the rezone seems fine. The rock crushing could particularly harm, some of the neighbors, enjoyment. It's never good to have someone cite, particular health implications, but that's why we have zoning. And again, the rezone in itself, we're looking at multiple trucks accessing that. So is the rock crushing, that much more to ask for? I don't know. So those are my comments. It's not really a question. I started with that.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I just have a deliberation. Is this the final hearing for this, or will there be one more hearing for it?
This is the final hearing, so if you'd like to have it at another meeting, you'd have to continue it.
Mhm. Okay, so this is the first time I've heard the complaints from the surrounding properties, and I'm concerned about some of the issues he raised, especially having to do with particulate matter and software engineering, and how the dust could harm maybe some of the existing goals of the business district that is there. So this would be this would kind of be spot zoning, right? I mean, all the surrounding areas are zoned as in a way different than heavy industrial. It's general business at general, right?
Yeah, so the surrounding property is general industrial, which is a similar use or similar zone to the heavy industrial
Right.
district, but it is an 833 zone. So this would be the only heavy industrial
Mhm.
zone in the proximity of at least the frame on the screen right here. So
Yeah,
a few parcels deep.
But just, sorry,
yeah.
but just to the northeast, there is a facility that semis are in and out of on a daily basis.
Mhm.
So it's trucks in the area is not, would not be a new.
Uh-huh.
It's a food, I think it's a food wholesale distributor is what I remember.
Yeah, you're talking about
Or
Nash
Nash.
Finch. Yeah, they're a major regional food
Mhm.
distributor. Their trucks going in there, in and out
Yeah.
there all the time. So yeah,
Right.
that would not be new. And when you talk about the different codes and the zones, you're really saying that the zoning now is essentially city zoning. And what we're proposing now is to change it to a county zone.
Yeah, so the 833 areas are outside of the interlocal agreement that expired, but even further out. But yes, this is a chapter 833 zone, which is,
Right. I'm just trying to
Prior.
decode that a little bit.
Yes, yeah.
So we'd be changing it from a city zone to a county zone.
it is in the county zoning ordinance, but yes, it was adopted because of at the time, the city zoning had this as general industrial.
Thank you.
I thought we'd finally seen the last of those a couple of years ago, but apparently not. I do have,
I've got my hand up.
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you, Dee. Go right ahead.
That's all right. It's okay. I just wanted to point out that kind of in response to what Jeff asked earlier is that both the Plan Review Committee and staff have recommended approval on this. So that is what sways me. They've been through it at length and in detail. And that's what I'll base my vote on. So thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Owen. Jackie, I wanted to kind of clarify when they came in with this request, the categorization as a truck terminal was kind of in dispute, but the reason that it has to be a truck terminal is because they leave trucks there overnight. Is that correct? It doesn't have anything to do with the amount of traffic they generate.
Correct. I think the other use that was under consideration was not, it was more of a building trades, construction trades use. So this use, trucking terminal use will allow them to store heavy trucking, highway type trucks overnight and on the property, not to be idling, but just to be stored on the property.
Right. Right. So I was just trying to get in mind, because there are large trucks in that area that are the normal daily traffic. Diesel powered trucks are not uncommon in that entire area, as Mr. McKim pointed out. What about the vegetative screening that will be required if this goes to heavy industrial? Can you
Yes.
speak to that a little bit?
Sure.
What the neighbor would be seeing
Mhm.
in this category? Because I believe it's pretty significant vegetative screening requirement.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pull up the Elevate GIS since it's helpful to have that overview, so. Okay, so this is the subject property that we're talking about here. And depending on the way that the neighboring properties are utilized is what is going to determine the type of buffer yard. So trucking terminal is going to be a high intensity zone. So for instance, if there's a vacant property or a low intensity property, then they would have a large buffer yard, probably 20 feet in width is the most restrictive, but it can be anywhere between 10 and 20 feet wide, with a large D value of several trees every 100 feet. And I believe that the petitioner is the person who spoke, I believe, is this location here. And the petitioner's site plan does show a preservation of the area along the western portion of the site. So their improvements would largely be on the central and eastern portion of the site, leaving a lot of that area preserved, but it wouldn't be a requirement. So that's something to consider if that's a site plan and they choose to take that down all the way down to the, let's say, 15-foot buffer yard that might be required there, then we wouldn't have, unless it was a written commitment to preserve that area, we wouldn't have the ability to enforce that preservation.
Right. I think I would be, especially in light of the plan that they've submitted. It pushes it closer to that, what looks like another industrial use where there's a lot of truck trailers there. So maybe a commitment to preserve the existing vegetation between them and the neighbors to the northeast would be desirable. Yes, Tron.
With Dee's comment, actually got me thinking, and I do have a question, and it's with the recommendation to the Plan Commission. The petitioner records a written commitment limiting some of the uses on the subject property that are normally permitted under the heavy industrial zoning district as recommended by the Monroe County Plan Review Committee. When it says some, there's a little ambiguity in there. Is that with the inclusion of not allowing or permitting the rock crushing? Well, that's the letter that they're committing to. So I'm kind of wondering
Yeah.
where planning's recommendation stands as is today with what the petitioners are willing to commit to.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Tron. So the recommendation by the Plan Review Committee does differ a little bit from the letter that the petitioner has put in front of you. So as I think as it relates to rock crushing, that's a use that's listed by the Plan Review Committee, but not listed by the petitioner. So it would be important that when you state your recommendation that you refer to the petitioner's written commitment, or if the uses, if you want to, we probably should just list out those uses one by one to say what will be excluded so that we're clear and the petitioner is clear.
And as a follow-up, if the rock crushing wasn't a commitment the petitioners are willing to make, would planning be in a position to give us a recommendation today on that? Because I see that they're recommending the plan review
Mhm.
committee's comments. I want to know
Yeah.
where the planning
Right. So,
office or yourself,
Yeah.
Mr. Jackie
yeah, I-
Nestor Jelen.
I think that we would still recommend a favorable vote. This area is industrial by nature, and it is a general industrial zone, which is similar to the heavy industrial zoning district. I think that the petitioner's willingness to reduce the number of uses permitted is something that we can certainly consider and is enforceable, but it's under a written commitment that they're willing to do that as part of the rezone.
Thank you. One further comment. I'm in support of most likely allowing this for the use that I think the petitioners intend it for, especially with the truck stop use for allowing their equipment for overnight. Again, I would like to see this move forward. So if any plan commissioner really has a reservation against not permitting the rock crushing, I'd like to hear that, because I'm kind of indifferent at this point, because I would really like to see this move forward with a favorable recommendation, with or without the rock crushing being allowed.
Okay, do we have any other comments?
I guess if nobody has any other comments, I'll make a motion. We'll see if it goes. And if it doesn't go, then somebody else can make a different motion.
I think that the petitioner does have one chance for a
sorry.
rebuttal of the remonstrance
Sorry.
statements,
Oh, yes, thank you.
if they would like to.
Chelsea tells me I can come talk. I'd like to answer any
If you would, please
questions, what
introduce
I'd like to
yourself.
do. I'm Greg Young
Thank you.
and petitioner, and I'm sorry, but I cannot hear a thing back here with the HVAC system running. So I'm sitting there watching lips work, but I couldn't hear a thing that's going on. I apologize for being late. I respect the commission here, and I know you do a great work. But if you got any questions, it sounds like the rock crushing thing is something that you're not sure about. This isn't, we're not crushing rock. It's a recycling system is what I'm looking at. And it's something we do on occasion. I don't own a crusher, but I rent one occasionally. We crushed the 4th Street parking garage they tore down here a couple years ago. Some other property I own. You know, it's for uses like that. And I'll stockpile this material, and once a year, maybe once every 2 years, I'll bring the machine in and crush it, you know, and it's not going to be a mountain. It's going to be 10,000 ton or less, most likely. And 10,000 ton in a pile is not a whole lot of material. But, you know, for a recycling use, that's my intention with the crushing concrete and asphalt. Is what it is. But it's not going to be a facility, anything like Rogers or Independent or Ingram's, nothing like that. A small portable machine, which we had a picture of, weighs about 100,000 pounds. And you drop recyclable material in it, and it spits 4-inch minus out the other end of it. That's what I'm wanting to do. And it, you know, right now we dump it in quarries right now. So this is all filling in old quarries, this material. And so it's useful material. And I see a need for some recycling. Nobody does it in this area. And something I'd like to do. And so with the heavy industrial recommendation, of course, rock crushing is part of that heavy industrial. And that's what opened the door. I thought, well, now might be a good time to do that. But I'm not going to hang my hat on it. If it's a deal killer, I'll let it go if the commission's that worried about it. It's something I think the community could use and benefit us all. But I'm not going to let it destroy this project. And I'd be glad to answer anybody's questions.
So how many days a year would you estimate that he would be utilizing the property?
Probably 10 days.
One question, and this was talked about, so I guess it's more to staff. Was what was discussed, we were talking about using a above ground rock crusher only. Is that still part of this discussion? Or are you, throughout this discussion, there's been different intensities of kind of rock crushing, and part of that was the possibility of allowing above ground rock crushing only. And I'm kind of curious, that's not really the discussion we're having. We're talking about just permitting rock crushing in general at this time, correct? Okay.
Yes.
Just wanted to clarify that as we were talking. I do have a question, though. They were talking about some preservation of the trees kind of right there on Loesch Road. Would you be amenable to that? Potentially buffering kind of some of the adjacent neighbors? And I think Jackie will outline that area on the screen. It came up in the discussion just earlier, so I was kind of curious where your position was.
Yeah, as you
you're
can
here.
tell by the site plan, it's our intention to preserve that area. I may go in there and clean it up. There's some dead trees and some down trees as far as that goes, but no, we have no intention of removing that area.
And then I guess back to my first clarification. You're only intending to use the above ground rock crusher, correct?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with the business. I don't know if there's like a built-in
I
one.
thought they were all above ground.
Well, that could be the case. I just want to make sure that where my support is correct. And Jackie, could you bring that picture back up? And from my understanding, it would only be this kind of above ground activity, and you're stating that they don't really have any other
It's just a
operations
portable
like.
machine, a track
Okay.
mounted machine. And yeah, it's something we can load it up on a trailer and haul it. I mean.
And that's what I was believing the whole conversation was kind of.
There might
built
be a
around.
need for a conveyor to go along with it to stack it. They call a stacking conveyor, so you can get stack your stone higher and make taller cones out of it. But yeah, I mean, it'd just be a matter of the crusher and an excavator to feed it. You just sit there with an excavator and feed it. Produce material that I can market. There's a market for it, and it saves it from going in one of our quarries around the area.
Okay, any other questions? Jackie, I just have one last question. I know that the zoning ordinance is still in progress. When this area is rezoned, when we take away the current 833 designation that's on it, is this use consistent with what's going to be in that area? I know it was intended for employment. What I look at in employment is not specifically this kind of project, but it was sent forward with approval from the comprehensive plan in terms of the comprehensive plan. But I just want to be sure, because the way I read the language and the recommendation don't match in my mind.
Yes, so the county development ordinance draft zone map, I believe, has this as heavy industrial.
Okay, all right, not employment. I mean, it's the overlay is employment, but
Right.
okay,
That's
well,
the
what I read in
land use
employment didn't include this kind of thing.
Okay, I'll
So-
double check on that, Jerry.
Well, here, I'll. Employment-oriented uses include light industrial, manufacturing, and assembly, research and development facilities, flex office space, construction trades, warehousing, and other types of commercial uses that may not be easily integrated into a mixed-use environment. These uses may require large isolated sites for large format facilities, or multiple facilities may be organized into coordinated campus style or industrial park settings. The land use category is intended to accommodate the expansion and changing operations of a wide variety of companies and to foster a well-rounded and diverse economy as part of the greater Bloomington area. Special attention should be paid to vehicular access management, buffering and landscape aesthetics, building and parking orientation, and basic architectural design standards. Business support services are encouraged to be integrated into larger employment areas. And I would think of this as a business support.
Yeah, the large format building that was discussed, I think that has some flexibility in that, but generally speaking, the comprehensive plan just listed out different areas of employment. It didn't necessarily have specific areas for industrial versus commercial. It's just under one category.
Right, right. And like I said, I'm just concerned that if the rest of this is employment, you know, as long as it is going to include heavy industrial in that area. I know that's a large piece of property or large area
Right.
that's currently designated IG and a large area of this employment. So maybe some parts of it won't be heavy industrial, but I want to be sure that where this is located, heavy industrial be consistent with what the future zoning will be.
Yeah, I think as far as future zoning will be, you know, the planning commission and the county commissioners will obviously make that decision. But I think as far as the draft zoning map goes and the areas currently zoned general industrial, that heavy industrial is a fitting zoning district. for
Okay,
that.
all right. And I'm not trying to nail you down. I just conceptually, this will fit in that future. So thank you very much for answering that question. I don't know if anyone else was concerned with that, but when we start talking about spot zoning in an area like this, that's currently under the old city ordinance for zoning, spot zoning is not really an appropriate term for what's happening. It's rezoning in advance of the rezoning that will follow the current comprehensive plan. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
I do have one comment just for Greg. The standards in 802 will require that dust be managed as part of the rock crushing. Would you be able to ensure that there wouldn't be dust from the rock crushing leaving the site?
Yeah, we could, there's ways of taking care of that, Jackie. For one thing, concrete and asphalt doesn't make dust like rock. I mean, you're gonna look at me like I'm nuts, but it's not like crushing limestone. It doesn't generate the fine particles that limestone does. But so it's a little cleaner operation to start with. But yeah, we would definitely be willing to comply with IDM on any kind of dust situations.
Thank you. Dee Owens has her hand raised. Ms. Owens, if you would.
Thank you, sir. I would just like to say that listening to Mr. Young's comments answered any remaining questions for me about rock crushing being a very occasional activity, and then following up on Jackie's question with dust not being the same. There, if this service is not provided in the county, I think it's good to be able to say that the service is provided. So I will be voting in the affirmative after Jeff makes this motion. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Owens. If there are no other questions or comments at this time from the Planning Commission, I would favorably entertain a motion.
In the matter of REZ 22-4, rezone request, Aero Properties LLC, rezone request from IG to HI. I move that we forward a favorable recommendation to the Board of Commissioners based on the findings of fact and compatibility with the Monroe County Comprehensive Plan, subject to the following conditions. One, the petitioner record a written commitment eliminating several of the uses on the subject property that are normally permitted under the heavy industrial zoning district. In particular, central garbage/rubbish, remote garbage/rubbish removal, wastewater treatment facility, water treatment facility, agricultural sale barn, and bottled gas storage distribution. And second written commitment that the petitioner agree to preserve the vegetation on the western side of the property.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Jackie, please call the roll.
I have maybe a point of order. And there might be a Dave Schilling. I know that he said he would be willing to preserve that, but can we take a commitment in this type of fashion? I'm pretty sure they have to write it and then present it before we can kind of make an action on that commitment. So I just want to
Well,
clarify
the
that.
approval would be contingent on the written. That's.
Oh, contingent to it?
so
Okay.
That's.
All right.
But if Dave-
Mr.
I
Schilling,
still
I believe,
wants to answer.
excuse me, I believe that we can take a commitment such as this in this fashion. So Mr. Schilling, can you confirm?
Yes, I think you can do that, and you can require it to be recorded prior to the commissioner's consideration.
Right, that's exactly what I was thinking. So, Mr. Young, if you would please, before this advances to the Board of Commissioners for final approval, get with Mrs. Moss, identify the area on your final development plan as a tree preservation or vegetative preservation for that area that we mentioned earlier, that you committed to verbally maintain with only cleaning up the dead trees and the like. So, okay, thank you. I'm sorry, public comment has been closed, but did we satisfy your? Okay.
Some limit on the number of days. Here, that you would operate a contract with them.
You know what? I'm going to take for granted that Mr. Young must be a good neighbor. And if he's going to do any kind of rock crushing activity, I'm going to take for granted he's going to talk to his neighbors and let them know when that's going to take place so that they can plan accordingly. Mr. Young, I don't think I'm putting too much of a burden on you to be a gentleman there. So we'll just leave it at that. We do have a motion and a second on the floor, and I am ready for the vote. Jackie, please call the roll.
Okay, and just as a note, any commentary from the public, the Zoom attendees won't be able to hear that. So we really have to make sure people come up to the podium and, so we're.
Okay.
So I will go ahead and call the vote. The motion is to send a favorable or positive recommendation to the Board of Commissioners based on the findings of fact and compatibility with the Monroe County Comprehensive Plan, subject to the following conditions. Number one, that the petitioner record a written commitment limiting the uses in the heavy industrial zoning district to exclude the following: central garbage, rubbish, remote garbage, rubbish removal, wastewater treatment facility, water treatment facility, agricultural sale barn, bottled gas storage distribution, and that the petitioner additionally submit a written commitment to preserve the vegetation on the west side of the property and record those commitments prior to the commissioner's final hearing. Amy Thompson,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford,
Yes.
Jeff McKim,
Yes.
Margaret Clements,
Yes.
Tronan Wright Randolph,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Julie Thomas.
I'm going to vote no. I'd be a yes if there was no rock crusher involved at all, but I'm going to vote no. Thank you.
Okay. So the motion to send a favorable recommendation passes 6-1.
Thank you. This will be put on the county commissioner's agenda, and you will be notified by planning staff when that will appear before the Board of Commissioners.
Yes, and if we haven't made contact before, if one of our planners could meet you out in the hallway and just get your contact information so that we can send you that meeting information, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Per the agenda that we had approved tonight, the Rust Road sliding scale subdivision preliminary plat road width waiver request has been withdrawn by petitioner. So our next item on the agenda is PUD 22-3, the Lakes or Verona Park Planned Unit Development, Plan Phase 2A, amendment to Common Area A, preliminary hearing waiver, final hearing requested. This is a 1 acre parcel in Perry Township, section 14 at South Constance Avenue. The owner is 3051 South Sarah Road LLC. Presenting will be our very own Jackie Nestor Chillen.
Yes. Okay, so this is the Lakes PUD, or otherwise known as Verona Park PUD. They're requesting approval of an as-built of the Common Area A, which is a stormwater detention area. And the purpose of this is, the reason they're before you is that their outline plan for the Lakes Neighborhood PUD requires all development plans to be approved by the Plan Commission. And so just a little bit of background on this, the Common Area A was noted to be deficient on August 13th, 2021, and that was communicated to the petitioner and the owner. At that time, we noticed differences between the approved plans and the as-built plans in terms of materials used, elevations, and measurements, which you can see on Exhibit 4 of the report. If granted approval for Common Area A, I do want to note that a land use certificate would be able to be issued for the Common Area A as built. And in addition, there is an 8-unit townhome constructed on the neighboring property that would also be able to receive a land use certificate if the Common Area A is approved as built without changes. So I'm going to focus quite a bit on the Stormwater Commons, since this is a bioretention facility and that is the only thing located on this lot. The MS4 coordinator, Kelsey Thatonia, does not have concerns regarding the change in configuration of the mill block around the pond. And she also notes that there is an increase in storage volume from what was originally approved, and that her stormwater inspector, Erica Penna, would be working with them to address any remaining erosion control. That was on June 14th. On July 13th, the MS4 inspector, Erica, did do a site visit and recommended that there be an updated operation and maintenance manual, or O&M manual, that depicted the as-built conditions and specified regular mowing and the south embankment and emergency spillway, and that there was some issues with the overgrowth of clover in the area to also be addressed in the O&M manual for maintenance. And then there was also discussion on the permeable pavers, that there needed to be some maintenance of that as well to make sure that they're still functional. So in the O&M manual that's been passed to our MS4 inspector and coordinator, there has been approval roughly of that since the packet has gone out, and they were able to put in their maintenance agreements that would allow us to be assured that the landscaping is going to be maintained, inspected, and replaced with any landscaping that dies over time, and that invasive species will be removed. So I did just upload a screen grab of that discussion with their engineer, their representative engineer, discussing that the O&M manual has been approved just administratively and will need to be recorded. So I just have this a little out of order, but this is the area and the location of the Common Area A under the Lakes Neighborhood PUD, and some site photos of the area as well. So originally it was approved to have more of a retaining wall feature, and the elevations were going to be a little bit more distinct. This is the as-built on the screen, but as stated by their engineer and reviewed by our MS4 coordinator, it still functions and has an increased volume from what was originally approved. So it is functional as bioretention. So staff is recommending approval of the development plan amendment based on the findings subject to the MS4 coordinator and highway engineer reports with the following condition that the petitioner submit an O&M manual for stormwater approval. The O&M manual shall be approved by stormwater and recorded by the petitioner prior to the issuance of a land use certificate. So I can take any questions.
Do we have any questions for staff at this time? Go ahead, Mr. McKim.
Thank you. No, I just wanted to clarify. So they have written the and had the O&M manual for stormwater approved. It just needs to be recorded. Is that?
Correct. Yeah, that happened today.
Okay, so we could still include this condition. It's still appropriate to include the condition. Okay.
Do we have any other questions? Jackie, would you bring up photo 1? Yeah, in the upper left-hand corner. That's the way that's going to be left permanently?
This is the final condition of the common area A.
Ooh. Okay, I'm not real impressed with the aesthetics of that. Especially with it being so close up against that building. What's the distance between the building and that slope that's partially held back, looks like by limestone blocks, and then by whatever that mess of stuff is to the left of the limestone wall? Yeah, that right there. What is that?
That distance is, I would defer to the engineer, but I guess it's probably about 10 feet.
Okay, now the next question is, does that 10 feet have to be maintained like grass, like mowed and all that stuff?
Yes, that would be part of the O&M manual. in that area.
Oh, well, heaven help whoever has to mow that. Okay, those are my only questions. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Okay, are we ready to hear from petitioner? Is the petitioner or petitioner's representative here? Please identify yourself by name and sign in.
Thank you. I'm Margie Rice. I'm an attorney working with Tim Hinkie. Also, he is here, by the way, and so is Katie Stein, the engineer. And we'll be happy to answer any questions you have. I do want to emphasize that the O&M manual was recorded today, and it does address those concerns you've raised about landscaping. I do think what your question that you just asked, Jackie, hit the sort of nail on the head about what was the conversation that's taken place the last year between the petitioner and planning. And I do want to thank planning staff for all of the work that they've done to help us get to the point where we're at. You can see that the deficiency letter was issued last August. Here we are about a year later. There's been a lot of back and forth between the petitioner and his staff and planning staff and stormwater staff. The good news is that this detention pond delivers in terms of the volume and the function that is necessary. It in fact exceeds the amount of stormwater that it can hold. And that's what you want from a detention pond. When it was being built, it became clear, and I don't pretend to be an engineer. So to the extent that you have engineering questions, we'll have Katie come up. It became clear that on that parcel where that detention pond needed to be, you would not be able to put those large stone blocks and the berm that needed to be there, the clay berm to hold back the water. So the berm was created, the landscaping or the slabs, limestone slabs were put on the south side, and where possible, the limestone blocks were put. So it does look different than what the picture or the depiction was provided, but it delivers in terms of function. And if you were to say, hey, I want limestone block all around it so it looks prettier, might not deliver in terms of the function. And so given the fact that it's supposed to be a functional stormwater pond, you know, the engineers said, hey, let's build it right so that it functions properly. And if you want to hear from Mr. Hinkie, or you want to hear from Katie, they're here. And if you have any questions for me, I'm more than happy to try to address this.
Does anyone have questions? All right. Does petitioner wish to continue? Mr. Hanky?
Yeah, sure.
Hi, for the record, I'm Tim Hankey and I'd be happy to answer your questions. Jerry, it does look good. That's not a very photogenic picture. I can show you a picture with a deer standing in it. It looks good, but the whole process is a balance. We have to have these things close to housing because they're collecting runoff. And then the plants that we're required to put in it, most of us, if they're in our yard, we would kill them. We'd say they're weeds. It's a balance. We have all the right plants in it and it's functioning perfectly. We're here because planning staff, the ordinance says if you change stormwater, it's a change, it has to come here. And what we change is we have fewer of the mill blocks than what is depicted on our site plan. Our site plan was rather vague. And when we get out there, we got to build the best product so that we leave the homeowners association with something that's highly durable, relatively easy to maintain. And then, of course, we define that in the O&M manual, which we recorded today. I don't want to take any more, waste any of your time, but anything I can do to answer.
Yeah. Mr. Hanky, is this the building that when we were going through the PUD process, I think we pushed it out a little bit in order to gain some space on that? Is that correct?
To a great extent, yes. The original plan had this detention pond right out on the sidewalk. And we decided to push it back to make the streetscape better.
Okay. All right. So what is the part, Jackie, can you bring the picture back up? The part that's not mill block on the side of the
It's on the
retention
south
pond,
side.
closest to the structure, what is that composed of?
Well, one side is mill block and the other side is clay, a big clay bank with mill slabs laid on it. And all of it has plants and flowers stuck in around it.
Okay. So are the mill slabs that are there, are they secure?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Because it looked kind of.
It's
yeah,
a
that picture there,
fantastic
that looks-
facility
Right. You see what I'm talking about? The slabs there, that looks a little slick.
over here.
You know, look at the other picture and then to the left of the blocks, which you
Oh,
said are
that.
slabs. Where there's
so that's a
vegetation right
slab
above
and
that.
yeah, I'm not, yeah, I mean, those are mill slabs there and it's real secure. I mean,
Okay.
I welcome you to come out and see it. It's
All right.
really
Well,
as attractive as we could possibly be.
I understand. I just, when I first looked at that, I thought, I wouldn't mow on that side.
One other thing, if I have time, we did get a deficiency letter. We had a miscommunication on what was being inspected. We didn't think we were done when it was inspected. And so that's an apology, but we had a miscommunication.
Okay, thank you.
That was, a year ago.
All right. Do we have any more questions for Mr. Hanky? I don't see nobody on Zoom.
Thank you all for being
All
here
right.
tonight.
Thank you. We're ready to move to public comment. We don't have any questions. Okay. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor of this petition? And is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? All right. If not, I'll bring it back to the Plan Commission for final consideration.
I'm ready to make a motion, but first I want to kind of, I guess, ask staff, as long as it's not even more of a burden on your time, but I know that we wanted to scrutinize this kind of through a lot of different phases or potential changes through the whole development. And I'm curious, is this worth the extra time that us as a plan commission have put into it versus allowing the staff to do some of these administratively. That's just kind of a question I want to put out there because I feel like some of these changes come through on other petitions and you're able to, approve those administratively. And I just really want to know if we just put too much of an onerous burden on this petition and kind of wasted or wasn't as efficient with the time that we spent or that we did, just want to make sure we're using our time efficiently. So
Yeah.
not expecting an answer or anything, just kind of want you to ponder that and maybe give us some feedback because I would hate to put this type of burden on another petitioner if staff thinks we're not being efficient with our time.
Well, the petitioner is required to bring all development plan amendments to the plan commission because of the way the outline plan is structured. So if they were to propose an outline plan amendment and try to make it so that the development plan could be approved administratively by staff, that would be the way that they would have to do that. And so because they triggered a development plan amendment with this change, it needs to come through the plan commission.
Right. And I'm just kind of curious of how much additional steps we've taken to really kind of overview that.
Yeah.
To scrutinize and look at this petition, but
Right.
I'm ready to make a mission unless
Okay.
you have.
I want to, since you brought that up, I want to address it. Okay. I don't believe that staff should be approving these. The plan commission approves a PUD. They become the enforcers of the PUD, not staff. Any material deviation from what's in the PUD and what the development plan is for the PUD falls within the purview of the people who approve it, not the staff. I would never support changes in a PUD plan development being changed at staff level. My thought.
And I agree with Mr. Pittsford.
I was
Okay,
wondering
now
if
I
there was
think the
more
motion.
like smaller concerns but I agree with you. Most hardly in that statement that we should own kind of our role here. I was just wondering if there was more, trivial things. So I'll put that aside. Thank you for making that comment.
Okay, thank you. If you would
And
give
I'll,
us a motion.
all right, I move approval for the case number PUD 22-3, the Lakes Phase 2A Development Plan Amendment to a Common Area A. Move approval of the Lakes Neighborhood PUD Development Plan Amendment based on the findings of facts and subject to the MS4 Coordinator and Highway Engineer report with the following conditions. Petitioner submit O and M manual for stormwater approval. The O and M manual shall be approved by stormwater and recorded by the petitioner prior to the issuance of a land use certificate.
And we would need a waiver of final hearing too, right?
And a waiver of final hearing.
Second.
A motion and a second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the Lakes Neighborhood PUD or Verona Park PUD with a condition to submit the O&M manual for stormwater approval and then recording of a motion in favor is a motion to approve the development plan amendment. Jeff McKim,
Yes.
Margaret Clements,
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Amy Thompson.
Yes, and I would say that probably one way that staff and petitioner time could be conserved is if they are proactive with their changes to the plan rather than waiting until after something is in place and dealing with it.
Exactly.
Jerry Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously.
I love watching how my name gets spelled. They went through like 3 different iterations there. All right, thank you, staff. Thank you, Mr. Hanky and your folks. Next on our agenda is SPP 22-7 Pinnacle Business Park Major Subdivision Preliminary Plat Amendment 1 to lots 1 through 3, 5 through 7, 10 through 12, 14 through 16, and dedicated right of way. This is a preliminary hearing with a waiver of final hearing requested. The subject property is 11 parcels on 46.3 acres in section 36 of Richland Township at 3794, 3718, 3232, 3300, 3274, 3797, 3625, and 3379 West Profile Parkway, 310 North Curry Pike, and parcel number 53-04-36-100-054.014-001 at West Jonathan Drive. Property is owned by BB Profile LLC, ABB Incorporated. Presenting tonight will be our very own Ann Crecilius.
Thank you. So this petition site is located at the newly constructed West Profile Parkway and North Curry Pike. The property is currently zoned General Industrial, acronym IG. So the petitioner BB Profile is requesting to amend the preliminary plat of the Pinnacle Business Park Major Subdivision. This was recorded in 2021, and the preliminary plat was approved by the Plan Commission in November 2019. Just as a note, the meeting minutes can be found as a hyperlink listed in Exhibit 5 to that original meeting. So the subdivision is currently 15 lots. So here we will be reviewing 3 changes. So there are 3 proposed changes to dedicated right-of-way. Because of those changes, there are changes to multiple lots in shape and size. And then there's also a proposed creation of a new lot. So the first main change is the vacation of a portion of the right-of-way along North Curry Pike. This is the area that is north of West Profile Parkway Drive and the intersection of North Curry. The right-of-way was originally dedicated with the preliminary plat. This is an area that is affected by the known PCB contamination that it was platted originally. So the affected areas are subject to recorded restricted covenants. Currently, this portion of right-of-way is developed with parking lot. There are no plans to widen North Curry Pike, and therefore the dedicated right-of-way that exists and shown on the amended plat is adequate. The second change to right-of-way is the dedication of new right-of-way for Gates Drive. At the time of the original subdivision, plans for a connection to the north using Gates Drive were in progress, but not finalized. Since then, the plans to connect Gates Drive and Vernal Pike have been solidified to include what's commonly referred to as a Vernal Pike connector. The petitioner is willing to dedicate this right-of-way north of Gates Drive in exchange for the vacation of right-of-way called Cohen Drive, which we'll see on the next slide. This dedication of right-of-way is desirable by both the Highway Department and County Planning. The third change to right-of-way is the vacation of Cohen Drive. This was originally proposed as a new drive that was to be constructed. It is no longer being pursued by the petitioner. Cohen Drive was not required under the subdivision control ordinance. And the removal of this dedicated right-of-way has no impact on future development within the subdivision. So other changes within the preliminary plat? Yes?
I'm sorry, I thought you stopped, but that was just a
Nope,
pause.
still
My
going.
fault.
So the petitioner is accommodating that these right-of-way changes which were requested by the Highway Department. So the Highway Department supports all 3 changes. The dedication of Gates Drive is in exchange for vacating Cohen Drive. So because of these three right-of-way changes, there are changes to lots 1 through 3, 5 through 7, 12, 10 through 12, and 14. There's also the creation of a new lot 16. So currently, lots 4, 8, 9, and 13 are unchanged from the original plat. There are a few other changes, which include extending the drainage easement across lot 11, extending an access easement to connect proposed lot 16 to Jonathan Drive via the existing driveway. There would also be eliminating gas easements on the plat to comply with the latest title and deed work. So staff is recommending approval based on the finding that the proposed preliminary plat meets the subdivision control ordinance, subject to the Monroe County Highway and MS4 coordinator reports with the following plat edits. That the petitioner to update lot 16 easement to be 50 feet in width, which I believe has been taken care of. The construction plans for any driveways to be constructed to access lots 14 and 16 shall be reviewed by the drainage board. In addition, individual lots will be required to go to the drainage board prior to site plan approval at staff level. And that any condition of approval from the original preliminary plat approval in 2019 is still applicable. And that original approval letter and those conditions are listed in Exhibit 7. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a quick question. What is lot 13? Is that just like a green space or something?
Did you say lot 15?
13,
13 is extremely small.
right? That's what
I can't tell the
I thought
size
maybe
of
that was
each.
just like green space designated as a lot. I don't know.
So lot 13 is 0.46 acres with a buildable area of 0.2 acres. It does have an approved driveway cut.
Photomat, are they still in business? Sorry, you have to be a certain age for that. Okay.
Could be the
that's-
food truck. It's where the food truck.
Oh, okay, food truck, gotcha. So, right. Oh, man, that's really bad. There's probably a lot of people in the room who have no idea what a photomat is. Lisa's like, oh, I'm not gonna admit it. They were little buildings that you could tap your film off and they'd develop your pictures.
They still
You
exist.
don't remember photomats? Right, okay, never mind. I digress. My fault, sorry. Okay, does anybody have any real questions for Ann?
I think if you wanted to talk about the access, that new lot to the south and where they get the access from, I think the public generally would be interested in that one. Let me bring up the petition. I think we're still accessing it from the south road.
I can just hear you.
With one of the new lot creations, they're still accessing it from the south, correct? Going,
Correct. Lot 16 would be from basically what used to be the tail end Cohen Drive. So to the area that's south of Cohen Drive, it turns into an easement on lot 14. That's a drainage easement, and then crosses over private property and connects to Jonathan. So lot 16 would use the existing driveway cut from Jonathan Drive and go north. And that would be the only lot that would have like commercial access. Lot 14 is still would be access from there, but it's pretty much just drainage. So there won't be any construction on lot 14.
thanks. I just like the aspect of that. It helps mitigate some of the congestion and traffic, so.
Okay, any other questions? If not, I believe we're ready to hear from petitioner or petitioner's representative.
Hi there, Katie Steinsmith Design Group. I also believe Warren Cutshall is on Zoom. I don't have anything to add, but I'm welcome or happy to take any of your questions as Warren would be as well.
Do we have any questions?
And to answer your question, Mr. Pittsburgh, is we have had interest on that lot 13, despite how small it's.
Okay.
Warren Cutchall is also present. I wasn't sure how to get through. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You're up.
All right. Thanks, Ann. I think you gave a great presentation. I will stay on for questions.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Cutshall? I think you're both getting off easy tonight. No questions apparent. We'll move to public comment. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in support of this petition? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in opposition? There being none, I bring it back to the Plan Commission for final consideration and a motion or any further discussion.
In the matter of case SPP 22-7, Pinnacle Business Park Subdivision Preliminary Plat Amendment 1, right-of-way dedication waiver, preliminary plat amendment. I move that we approve the proposed preliminary plat amendment based on the finding of, based on the findings of fact that the preliminary plat meets the subdivision control ordinance, subject to the Monroe County Highway and MS4 coordinator reports with the following plat edits. 1, petitioner to update lot 16 easement to be 50 feet in width. 2, the construction plans for any driveways to be constructed to access lots 14 and 16 shall be reviewed by the drainage board. In addition, individual lots will be required to go to the drainage board prior to site plan approval at staff level. Number 3, any condition of approval from the preliminary plat from 2019 still applicable. See Exhibit 7, and we waive the final hearing.
I have a motion and a second. Or sorry, a motion. Do we have a second? Sorry.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. And does this include a waiver of the final hearing? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
And I want to note, I'm not sure if Exhibit 7 made it into the packet I was looking at. Is it reasonable for me to read those conditions out loud just so the petitioner knows all of the conditions that are?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
It might take me a minute, so I will bear with me. So
Officially,
Thank you.
I want to just state that my second still stands with his amendment for the waiver of final hearing. Just want to
Okay.
make sure
I had
that's
actually
official.
already, I actually had said that.
you did say that,
Oh, you
yes.
did?
Okay,
Oh.
so
All right, got it. So
So it's been moved and seconded to approve the preliminary plat amendment based on the highway engineer and MS4 coordinator reports with the following edits. 1 is the petitioner to update lot number 16 to be 50 feet in width. And then items 2 and 3, I believe, are related, but I will read out the number 2, construction plans for any driveways to be constructed to access lots 14 and 16 shall be reviewed by the drainage board. In addition, individual lots will be required to go to the drainage board prior to site plan approval at staff level. And number 3, any condition of approval from the preliminary plat from 2019 still applicable as an Exhibit 7, which I will read. 1, the closest driveway off of Profile Parkway will be at least 300 feet from the intersection of Curry Pike. This distance will allow, I'll wait for a second. This distance will allow room for the westbound left turn lane on Profile Parkway and room for eastbound left turning vehicles waiting to turn left at the driveway. All driveways along Profile Parkway are designed to be located opposite each other. This alignment will keep left turning vehicles from conflicting with each other as they turn left into the driveways. Number 2, the construction plans for the driveways to be constructed to access lots 2 through 3 and lots 8 through 9 shall be reviewed by the drainage board. In addition, individual lots will be required to go to the drainage board prior to site plan approval at staff level. 3, the parcels may be final platted before the road is constructed. However, lots with sole access to West Profile Parkway cannot begin developing before the road is substantially complete and driveway permits are issued. Number 4, all proposed ditching shall be completed and inspected by the MS4 Coordinator. Inspection will include depth, slopes, width, side slopes, vegetation, and erosion control. As-built ditch plans will be submitted before final approval by the MS4 Coordinator. Ditches shall be complete and inspected prior to the recording of the final plat or bonded for concurrently with the final plat recorded. If bonded, building permits for all lots will be delayed until 404, 401 permits are submitted to staff and ditching is complete. Grading permits for commercial sites may be delayed at the discretion of the MS4 Coordinator if requested prior to ditch completion. Number 5, minimum finished floor elevations will be noted on the preliminary and final plat. These may be changed through site plan procedure and approval by Drainage Board. Number 6, a homeowners association document must be submitted to county legal and recorded with the final plat recording. Number 7, the petitioner to provide covenants that address perpetual maintenance of stormwater facilities, detention basins, ditches, storm pipe, reference operations and maintenance manual. Covenants to include restrictions from EPA approval with reference location shown on the plat. Petitioner to provide a definition for drainage easements in favor of Monroe County in the covenants. Number 8, common areas are to include drainage easements. Number 9, O&M manual must include maintenance for detention basins, existing pond, ditches, and storm pipe with instructions to keep embankments mowed for inspections. Keep structures clear, brush and debris. Number 10, petitioner will make written commitments to consult on the site plan with the redevelopment commission for lots 1 through 3 and 8 through 9. And number 11, record written commitment to not build on the eastern portion of proposed lot 7 for 5 years for the proposed future connection to Sunrise. Greetings. I'll call the roll.
Okay. If you, before you do that, be sure that that exhibit 7 just gets added in, just the
minutes.
document for the minutes,
Yes.
right that away. I mean, I know you read it into the minutes, but if we can just kind of slip that in there, that would be
Yes.
great. So,
Yep.
all right. And
A vote.
appreciate the waiver of final hearing so we can get that photo mat going real soon.
A vote in favor is a vote to approve the preliminary plat amendment. Margaret Clements,
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph,
Yes.
D Owens,
Dee voted yes, but her connection was unstable, so she had to leave
okay,
the meeting and then sign back in since it was recorded as part of the transcript. I think we can accept that, but
okay.
that's a
Yes,
legal.
and I'm just now back. I'm sorry. It's just,
All right, good. No longer a legal point.
Yes.
thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Amy Thompson,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford,
Yes.
Jeff McKim.
I'm sorry, would you read those conditions again? Yes.
Thank you. Vote is unanimous to approve.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next item is continued by staff. It's SAD-21-4, which was Obannon Type E Administrative Subdivision. So we'll hear that at a later date. Our next item on the agenda is REZ-22-5, Sonia Lay rezone from light industrial to ag rural residential. Preliminary hearing with the waiver of final hearing requested. This is what is this? It says, 4.648 acre parcel. I don't understand what the 2 is.
There are 2 parcels.
Oh, 2 parcels, both at that size. Okay, gotcha. Okay, 2 parcels at 4.68 or 648 acres in Richland Township, section 35 at 353 North Knapp Road. Owner is Timothy Wines and Pamela Joe Wines, also known as Sonia Lee. And this is being presented by Danny Boy. All right, Daniel it is. I had to cheat because I didn't know your first name, sorry.
All right. As you mentioned, this is a parcel or 2 parcels for a total of 4.65 acres, more or less, Richland Township, section 35, and is currently zoned limited industrial. The petitioner is proposing to amend the zoning map from limited industrial to agricultural rural reserve. The site is currently a pre-existing non-conforming residential use allowed under chapter 803 of the Monroe County zoning ordinance. The single-family residential use is not permitted, however, in a limited industrial zoning district. The petitioner states that they do not see any future changes in use. If the zone request is approved by county commissioners, the petitioner intends to apply for a residential and accessory structure permits.
I'm sorry, can you make sure he's mic'd because I can barely hear him and we've had a problem with that mic for quite a few meetings, so.
All right, can you hear me now?
Perfect. Thank you so
All
much.
right. I'm sorry, where was I? Yes. If the rezone or request is approved by the county commissioners, the petitioner intends to apply for a residential accessory structure permit. All applicable site plan requirements for residential accessory structure permits apply. They plan on they have mentioned this in their petitioner letter, that the acreage will easily accommodate expansion. They wish to not only renovate and enlarge their home to allow space to accommodate everyone, but restore the old barn, build a greenhouse for gardening, a small pool house, and install solar panels for energy efficiency. They also will potentially remove their current existing dual septic system and attach to the city sewer to try and accommodate any expansions. The current comprehensive zone designation is MCUA Conservation Residential, which is one of the reasons for this petition, as in the future, it will be a residential site, even if it is, I believe, denied at this meeting. And here we have the current definitions of the zoning districts. And here is a brief overview of using pictometry. For some reason, the area was not picking up that this is part of the property. I have been told by the petitioner during a site visit that they do not plan on building on this side of their property, nor do they plan on encroaching into the wooded areas back here. These are just some site photos that I took of the property. The photo on the left shows the vacant lots that plans on remaining vacant, while the picture on the right shows the area that is currently occupied. And again, there are some accessory structures already on this property, but there is no limits in agricultural rural reserve on how many structures you can have on a property, so long as the total square footage does not exceed 15,000 square feet. And so staff recommends forwarding a positive recommendations to the Board of Commissioners based on the findings of fact and compatibility with the Monroe County Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you, Daniel. Do we have someone here to speak on this petition?
I actually have a question for staff.
Okay, sorry, I skipped that and there's a question.
Sorry. I just am curious about whether any of those discussions need to be recorded about potential building sites. Maybe that's a Dave question or a Jackie question, sorry.
Yeah, so in order to require them to hold them to that statement, I would suggest if you were inclined to record a commitment to combine the parcels for planning and zoning purposes. And if you wanted to have a preservation of the western portion, that would also be part of a written commitment.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, if not, you may come forward and speak on behalf of this petition. If you would please identify yourself by name and sign in.
Good evening. My name's Sonia Lee, property owner. And what we are looking to do, some of the concerns about the preservation of the back western side of that property, that would maintain. I am avid nature lover, and I constantly have not only families of deer that have been out there, there's red fox, there's, you know, it's wonderful, and I want to keep it that way. We are looking, the home is 100 years old. It desperately needs repairs and expansion. This will be me and my husband's final home. It will be passing over to my son. He's on the autism spectrum. And so we want to be able to, probably the back part of the home will be taken off, but the original 100-year-old part will remain preserved and updated. But the back end was back in the 60s, I guess, a mobile schoolhouse, we were told, that was brought in and placed. And so again, you look at that, how old that is now. But we have no garage. We desperately need a garage, something for storage. So it would probably be like a metal barn that would be put out there. And, I want to maintain it to look like a farm. That's what it is. But anyway, that's kind of the plans. And with my son and his disability, he has been able to acquire a part-time job at Cook. Very good. They work very well with the disabled, bless them. But he's able from there to walk to work because he will more than likely never, be able to drive, anything like that. So with this in mind, we can prepare it, pass it to him, and he will be able to always have a roof over his head and be able to work and get transportation. But in him building, part of that independence is, again, why we want to do these additions, to get him a proper extension, little apartment, part of the house where he can grow with that independence. So that's kind of our plans. I know in there it said to put a shed, but like I said, it would be like a barn and then extending and improving the home. Any questions?
Yes, any questions?
I have a question.
Yes. Go ahead, Ms. Thomas.
So you would be amenable both to having sort of a conservation easement on part of the property recorded before it comes to the Board of Commissioners?
Oh, yes, most definitely.
And then would you also, and I don't know how this works if you're putting an addition onto a home, but would you be amenable to also record a commitment that you would not oppose a historic overlay on the house? In other words, if a Board of Historic Preservation recommends that part of the property contain an overlay, meaning it's historically preserved.
Right.
Would you also agree to not oppose such a petition if the Historic Preservation Board came forward with that?
Oh, yes. No, I mean, I've already been in touch with the Historic Preservation Board.
Great.
They came out, viewed the property and walked it, and even wrote a letter of recommendation, to the board.
Right.
But, the original is the front part. So in pictures, you can probably see where it kind of jogs out.
Yep.
And one of the photos showed to the left, it looked like, a 3-car garage. That's not us. That's the neighbor.
Right. Right.
I'd like to have that, but
Yeah.
anyway, and, just to let you know, as far as that property and how it's currently zoned, it is residential and agricultural around me, but my home, and this was back probably, 20, 25 years ago, and 4 other homes, that's it, was zoned with this industrial zoning. And I imagine it was at the time they thought Cook and Baxter, would expand back. But that has not happened. Matter of fact, 10 years ago, my husband had a change in job and we actually approached Cook and, are you interested? And, they're not. Cahey sits vacant. So if anyone of business wanted to go in, I would imagine they would do that as opposed to trying to take over our properties. The two homes to the north of me have recently been completely renovated on the inside, and had been up for sale for 4 to 425. So, none of us in that small little strip, us 5 homes, have any plans of it ever becoming anything industrial or commercial, unless, of course, county comes in and boots us all out, but that's kind of our plan.
Right. Well, and there are several places in that general area that have that overlay that have long been residential that will never change. I think there's an area just off of Woodyard Pioneer Lane that was in the exact same situation you are in, and we had somebody come back, and that's just an unintended consequence of the exuberance of zoning. When you see industrial use going in somewhere, you try to clear the runway so more can come in. So obviously you're there, you're staying, and I think we can support that.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate
Do we have any other questions for petitioner? Sound like she's a step ahead of you, Dr. Thomas. All right. If there are no questions for petitioner, I'm going to open the public comment. All righty, let us open public comment. Thank you, Ms. Lee.
You're welcome. And thank you very much.
Randy, do you wish to speak in support of this petition? Okay, sorry, he's the only one in person. If there's anybody in Zoom or otherwise who would be interested in speaking in support of this petition, now would be the time. I don't see any. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, it comes back to the Planning Commission for final consideration and any last minute questions and a motion.
I'll make a motion if
I have a question, and it was in regard to some of your questions, and then a response from staff with talking about it being 2 lots of legal record, which has a lot of nuances to that, because if you go through a process where you combine them, then you have 1 lot, and if you ever want to sell that lot off, then you have to kind of go through that process again. I was looking at the proposed zoning, so it's still looking at like the zoning map, light industry. So I do think a residential use seems about right, but I'm trying to clarify maybe some conditions or commitments we're asking from the petitioner. Are we asking them to possibly combine that into 1 lot of legal record, or just the historical overlay and a couple other, I think, conservancy areas on the properties?
Yeah, I don't recall hearing any mention of combining the lots.
It was brought up during discussion. Staff brought it up. So I just wanted to really clarify what we're asking, because.
Okay.
You'll have to make a motion to include those written commitments.
Okay.
Are you?
I'll ask the petitioner, since she's graciously came back up. Is that something that you would like to leave as a potential option in the future, of having those as 2 separate lots of record?
Well, we years ago, and this has been a little confusing to me because we get 1 tax bill for the 2 properties. But it always shows that it is 2 separate. And years ago, we had went in to combine it. So we've been confused as to why it always shows that it's 2, but we have the 1 bill.
You can combine them for taxing purpose, and then there's the lots of legal record for planning purposes.
Okay, so that's probably what we missed.
And so I just wanted to ask you directly then, would you prefer to have those as 2 lots of legal records? So if you ever in the future want to sell that lot that's not developed, that you have that option without having to go through the process of having it divided again?
If both could be zoned that way, the only time that would come into play, my daughter as well, she has some disabilities. She's bipolar. She struggles. She currently has her own home that I've supported her in getting into, and I assist her monthly. But, you know, that once my husband and I pass, the property would be my son and my daughter's, so that they could then, you know, kind of support one another, so to speak. So the only thing that would happen with that is if possibly something could be written in that, you know, maybe a secondary home like for her or something would be built, that it would just strictly be family. It wouldn't be anything outside of that.
Thank you so much. That gives me a lot of insight to my question. And just to let you know, I'm supporting the petition either way, but I'm more supportive of leaving your options open and leaving it as 2 lots of legal record. And I really appreciate you addressing my question.
Thank you, Tron. Ms. Lee, I would let you know, having dealt with a situation very similar to this on Board of Zoning Appeals, when people have lots combined for tax purposes, and historically they begin to believe that they actually have 2 lots, they go to sell and they discover that they don't have 2 lots. And as is your case, the zoning has changed over the course of time. And some people are blissfully unaware of that, and they wish to sell the lot, or they wish to sign it over to someone else, and they discover they don't have a second lot, and it's not a residential use, or it's not a use that they thought it was. My recommendation to you would be to think long and hard about this, and whatever you do for taxing purposes, I'd recommend you do also the same for legal lots of record, so that there is no confusion, and that when you make those arrangements in your estate, that is clear, because it can be very confusing with estate law if you leave it as it is right now. So whatever you wish to do affects us not in the least, but it does affect your future. So keep that in mind.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
That being said, I would entertain a motion.
I'm going to make a motion in REZ 22-5, 353 North Knapp Road. The rezone request from IL to Ag RR with a waiver of final hearing on 4.65 plus or minus acres in Richland Township. A positive recommendation to the Board of Commissioners based on the petition's compatibility with Monroe County Comprehensive Plan, and with 2 written commitments to be presented before it reaches the Board of Commissioners, one related to establishing a conservation easement for the record, and the other that the petitioner will not oppose any effort by the Historic Preservation Board to establish an overlay over part of the property as they may deem necessary.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Jackie, would you please call the roll?
Yes, this is a vote to send a favorable recommendation to the Board of Commissioners based on findings of fact and compatibility with the comprehensive plan, with the following 2 requests as a written commitment. One is that the petitioner not oppose efforts by the Historic Preservation Board of Review to establish a historic preservation overlay on the property. And 2 is to put together a conservation easement to preserve a portion of the western portion of the lot. And I did say waiver of final hearing. And waiver of final hearing. Thank you. You got it. Thank you. Right. Tron and Wright Randolph.
Yes.
D. Owens,
Yes.
Julie Thomas.
Yes.
Amy Thompson,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford,
Yes.
Jeff McKim,
Yes.
Margaret Clements.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Ms. Lee, good luck with that. I wish you all the best. Tuck back in your nice little corner there. At this point, we are near the 2-hour mark and we have taken care of all the business requiring public input. So I am going to declare a comfort break for the next 5 minutes and we will reconvene at that time. Thank you. All right, when Dr. Thomas takes your seat, we will be back in order. And we have Jackie presenting our last item on the agenda for this rescheduled regular Plan Commission meeting. It is ZOA-22-4, an amendment to the Monroe County Zoning Ordinance, Chapter 801 definitions. This is a preliminary hearing, waiver of final hearing requested. This is an amendment to the change in use definition with the addition of definitions for certified site plan, plot plan certified, structure commercial, structure residential, and structure residential accessory. Go ahead, Jackie.
Thank you. So this is an amendment to chapter 801, as you stated. So I'll go through the different changes. So starting with the change in use, we are proposing that it become a little bit clearer and that we're saying that a shift in change of use is a shift in one use from the use table to another use in the use table. Whereas prior it was under the classification of uses below, which included outdated uses that are no longer applicable in the use table. And we're also verifying or confirming that the number of bedrooms for a unit is referenced from what is listed in the property report card, which is obtained by the assessor's records. Next, we have certified, going backwards. Certified site plan definition. It's a design that is certified by an engineer or surveyor that shows the full property boundaries, arrangement of buildings, all associated infrastructure and open space, and to see specific certification and component requirements under chapter 815. So the hope is that these definitions can tie people back into the amendment of chapter 815 so that they can see the specific requirements under each type of plan. Then we have the plot plan definition. So this is a plot plan is a scaled design that shows the area where improvements are being proposed or exist, as well as all associated infrastructure, and that they can see component requirements under chapter 815. And then a plot plan certified is a design that is certified by an engineer or surveyor that shows the area where improvements are being proposed or exist, as well as all associated infrastructure. And again, to see specific certification and component requirements under chapter 815. And then finally, we'll go down to structure definition. So structure, commercial. Structures categorized as commercial under chapter 815 based on construction applicability and use. Structure, residential are structures categorized as residential under chapter 815 based on construction applicability and use. And then structure, residential accessory structures categorized as accessory to residential uses under chapter 815 based on construction applicability and use. And I'd be happy to pull up chapter 815 for any reference points if anyone would like.
Does anybody wish for that? Okay. Do we have any questions on these? Looks like some good cleanup language and directionally beneficial to the public looking at this. So I like it. Any other comments? All right. We do need a motion on this, correct?
Yes.
Okay. If I could have a motion, please. Sorry, in the matter.
I think, sorry, you might want to take public comment on this as well.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Sorry.
I haven't done this for a while. I am so out of practice. Poor Randy's been sitting there so patiently.
You know what?
All right, is there anyone here who wishes to speak on this item?
Yeah. Appreciate it very much, Jerry.
No problem, Randy.
Randy Cassidy. As one has just learned everything in regards to the certified plot plans and trying to go through this and understand it, I do have a couple questions in regards to it as we look through the amendment and the changes there on that. One of the changes that I have just a couple questions in regards to. On a personal basis, I have no issues with anything on the certified plot plan. For me personally, it's just, as you know, Monroe County's 400 square miles, 137,000 people. It's a significant impact to a lot of property owners throughout the county as a whole. The one thing I did was wondering from a standpoint is like in ordinance 815, it allows an architect to do a certified plot plan. I noticed in the amendments and such, it just says survey and engineer. I didn't know if there was a particular reason why we eliminated an architect specifically or not. That's just a question in regards to it. And then the site plan, as we put it, where in that from a time frame standpoint, it indicates that if something is discontinued for 6 months, it triggers that. And the question I would ask in regards to that, go ahead.
Could you just speak a
Oh,
little
sorry.
closer to the mic?
In regards to, I'll start over, make sure the aspect of certified plot plan from, is an architect removed, is it an, Scrivener's error oversight, or is it just something that we just don't want architects to do? And then the aspect of the 815-2 that says a site plan will be required if a use is discontinued for 6 months or more. I understand a discontinuance, but nowadays, as I'm becoming an older individual and I start looking at things, if one of us or our mother went into a rehabilitation facility and it exceeded 6 months and we needed to have modifications to the home in order to have accessibility, would that trigger a certified site plan because they spent more than 6 months away from their residence? It's just a question in regards to it, because as always, the devil is in the details. And when these things come up, they become real concerns for all of us and our community as a whole. And then when we look at this aspect from, making sure that we're trying to do everything correctly and such, what is the size of the buildings? I know from my past experience and what I've heard, anything over 10 by 12. So like an accessory building and such, is it 10 by 12, 12 by 15? Is there a particular size that triggers that? Or is it the discretion of the administrator and planning department? And then finally, just on an aspect of always being concerned from the economics of things, because the American, we all want to own a home, and it's getting very, very difficult nowadays for our young people to be able to afford it. It's an unfortunate situation, and I wish I had the answer. I don't. But when we look at what this cost and time frame is, which starts at approximately 1,500 and can go up to 5,000 or more. I haven't went through the aspects of all the details. I've only contacted about 3 engineers on that, and it can take a minimum of 6 weeks. Now, with proper planning and financial, savings and such, you can plan for it. But I just want to bring these few things up as we look through our requirements for our county as a whole, that we do things that is in the best light for all of us. I know you guys take a lot of things into consideration. I appreciate it, but just reading through that and now trying to dissect the certified plot plan, I thought I'd at least bring those issues up and, see if there was some dialogue based on that. I appreciate your time and patience. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Okay. Jackie, it sounded like there's some questions in that. Do you want to address any of the questions that were raised by Mr. Cassidy?
Sure. I'll note that Mr. Cassidy's comments, I think, were for an amendment to chapter 815 that's already passed, sent a favorable recommendation by the Plan Commission to the commissioners. So I will make sure to include Randy on the commissioners' hearing of that, so that he's able to provide those comments. But also, Randy, I can give you the answers to that question, to these questions, maybe after today's meeting. I don't want to convolute the chapter 801 changes. If you have any comments specific to the definitions, then, okay.
I understand what you're saying.
I was looking at, because it references in the new amendments to 815. So that was why I used it from a reference standpoint. I guess the only specific question in regards to the amendment changes is where it goes from surveyor, engineer, and eliminates architect.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
that would be the only relevant thing to that actual, ordinance that's proposed this evening.
Sure.
Right, and I think that question had came up when we were just looking at this at the work sessions before too, I think.
Yeah, so the impetus for removing the architect was something that I believe actually Mr. Garatas did bring up during the portions of the Chapter 815 hearings. Architects are not able to certify property boundaries. So that was one concern that we had. In addition, we're finding that sometimes the scope of work included in a plot plan may be a little bit more technical, such as base flood elevation. That type of thing must be certified by an engineer. And most of the engineering firms in town do have surveyors on staff or people that they easily reach out to, which I'm not sure is always the case for architectural firms if they would outsource that anyways. We think that it might be appropriate to begin with an engineer or surveyor for those plot plans.
Okay, good. I knew there was a reason for that, and I couldn't remember what it was because I remembered that conversation, but that was not in the public aspect of it, unless people would decide to drop in on that meeting. So, okay, I hope that answers the question. And now, are there any others who wish to comment on ZOA-22-4? Is there anybody in Zoom? Okay, there appears to be none. So I would entertain a motion on this.
In the matter of ZOA-22-4, amendment to the Monroe County zoning ordinance, chapter 801 definitions. I move that we forward to the Board of Commissioners a favorable recommendation of the changes as laid out in the packet and waive final hearing.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Okay, thank you, D. Owens.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve ZOA-22-4. That includes a waiver of the final hearing and to send a favorable recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. A vote in favor is to send a favorable recommendation. D. Owens,
Yes.
Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Amy Thompson,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford,
Yes.
Jeff McKim,
Yes.
Margaret Clemens.
Yes, and I'd like to thank Mr. Cassidy for those important insights so that we can be more mindful of some of the real issues on the ground. Thank you.
Yes, and I would like to reiterate that is so important. We kind of work in an echo chamber sometimes. So the way these impact people who are outside of the walls of the planning office and outside of the group, we don't see that. So thank you. And we encourage anybody with similar concerns to please attend our meetings and be a part of that. So with that being said,
And Sean and Roy Randolph, sorry, is the last vote.
oh, I'm sorry. I thought
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, vote passes unanimous.
No, okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm a little rusty on running these meetings.
You're doing great.
So-
Thank you.
Okay. With that being covered, I do believe just for the sake of being official and all, that we need to do reports from planning staff and from the county attorney. And after that, we will close this meeting and then reopen under the Plan Commission Administrative Meeting agenda. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So do you have reports?
One report from us, and then I'll also want to defer to Plan Commission member Amy Thompson. One report from us is our zoning inspector has unfortunately put in her 2 weeks notice. So we are saying goodbye to her next week. But we also welcomed Sean Smith, a new planner too, in our office on Monday. So we're hopeful in getting him trained up, and he's already a great fit in the office. And I know Amy would like to make an announcement.
Oh,
Monday, I will, be, entering into a new role with.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear. I cannot hear.
Sorry, Dee.
Thank you.
This is my last plan commission meeting Monday, the 8th. I will be starting a new job with Purdue Extension, which is not a county educator position, which makes this position, you know, that statutory appointment associated with the county extension educator. So not going to say it's always been a pleasure, but I have done my best to show up and I have always very much appreciated the dedication and professionalism of our staff. So,
and we've appreciated you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Amy,
Yep.
for all of your service and your good questions.
it's
and
definitely
good thoughts.
bittersweet, and I'm happy to say I will still be living in Monroe County.
All right. So
Good for us.
Thank you,
Congratulations.
Amy. Appreciate you.
Yes.
you've stuck in there a good long time. I saw one before you and that's all. So that's pretty good.
Wow.
I actually was here when you got here, so I'm in that minority now. So
Wow.
again, thank you, Amy, for all you do. You and those like you are so vital to the future of our county, and we should not take that for granted. Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Schilling, who's with us via the interwebs, do you have any?
I have no report tonight.
Okay. Kind of hard to top Amy's announcement anyway. All right, with that being said, I'd entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. We don't have to call a roll on that.
Nope.
All right. So that closes the regular meeting, and now we will turn to the Plan Commission Administrative meeting.
Yes.
And Margaret has the night off as far as duties go. So I'm going to go ahead and share this as well, since I'm trying to get my abilities back in order here. So we have on our agenda tonight, one item of unfinished business and one new business. The unfinished business is PUO-21-1, P&G Planned Unit Outline Plan to rezone property from PB to PUD. What is PB?
What'd you say?
What is PB?
Pre-existing
Pre-exist-
business.
Okay, we almost never see that one. All right, this is one lot or one parcel of 4.93 acres plus or minus, located in section 29 Prairie Township at 5100 West Victor Pike. And Ann Crecilius is presenting.
Thank you. I will save a full presentation for our next public hearing. Right now, just a few updates. There have been a couple of exhibits added, some formatting changes. One of the exhibits that's added are remonstrance letters that have been received as of this year. All the original letters of remonstrance and support have all still been included from when this was continued back in January. Something I did want to point out is that I went through and added a much clearer timeline, since I know that even for myself, the dates were getting a little confused as to where this was. So everything's laid out, when it was continued, what did the Plan Commission talk about and request? So you can catch up there as to how this petition has been progressing. The other update is that just a kind of a note that our petitioner and their representatives are not here this evening because they are currently holding a neighborhood meeting. So there was a letter that's shown as an exhibit as well from July 13th stating that they would be having a neighborhood meeting tonight. So
Okay.
hopefully that goes well.
I have a question.
Okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
So I
heard that there's some litigation surrounding this property. If that's true, are we allowed to hear this? Maybe that's a Dave Schilling question. I don't know anything about it.
Yes, there's an appeal from a BZA decision, but that doesn't have any impact on this petition.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
No.
So we just need to review the material changes before our next hearing.
Yes, that would be great. I know it's been quite a while, and I will do a full presentation the next hearing.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Well, there's no need for you to go through that. This is, we heard a lot on this to begin with, and I'm sure you've added a lot. So we don't need you to walk us through it. We'll just, hopefully each of us will give very thorough consideration to this. It is just my perspective, but I consider this to be a very important decision for us because it has tremendous impact and has tremendous implications for things going forward. With an interstate running through basically the center of our county, these are the kind of things that we have to start putting in the balance, being able to provide for the needs of business and industry while being sensitive to the needs of the citizens and the environment. So this is one of those cases, and hopefully we will be able to think our way through it clearly and do justice to the petitioner and the zoning ordinance. Okay, moving right along. Our next item is under new business. This is a rezone REZ-22-6. This is Ray Barn renovation, historic preservation overlay rezone, preliminary hearing, waiver of final hearing requested. This is 7+ acres plus or minus. It is located at 4595 North Maple Grove Road. Petitioner is David William and Mary Lucinda Ray. Yeah, so presenting tonight is not Drew Myers, it's Tammy Bierman.
Yeah, I was working with this petitioner briefly before Drew took the case over. So basically, they're wanting to add the HP overlay to this 7-acre property.
Okay.
The Historic Board of Preservation has already reviewed this and have found 3 items that they believe support this local designation, which will help in protecting the structures on the site. There will be a more formal presentation of this in about 2 weeks. I do want to note that the IHSSI survey from 2014 ranks this as outstanding for the Ben Owens farmstead. And then also previously before that, the Monroe County interim report from 1989 also ranked it as outstanding. So, you know, there's the remainder of this packet, so it's like 70 some pages here, 80+ pages is this report. And there is some interesting history here. And I will also point out that it is within the Maple Grove National Historic Register District, just kind of right embedded in there. It has a lot of those unique limestone walls on the property. There are a lot of pictures. I'm sure you'll enjoy looking at those for the next meeting. So
No.
does anyone have any questions on this one?
Is that it? Sorry.
That's it. Just
I just had to
briefly.
lean over and ask Margaret if she was familiar with this property. I know this property. I know the petitioner. If there is a historically significant property in Monroe County that deserves all of the attention it can get, this is it. I think this is one of the most fantastic properties around. I know David, and I really would hope that it might be possible for Plan Commission to be able to go out and do a little site visit on this, so you can see, or at least drive by, and take a look, because it is an amazing property. It is absolutely beautiful. So anyway, that's my part on this. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to say that as I went through the pictures and read all those pieces about it, I thought, oh my gosh, what a beautiful place. Just gorgeous, amazing.
So David, if you're watching tonight,
We all come at your house.
right, we won't get in the pool. Doesn't have to be a pool party. All
Now
right,
there's a cemetery right next to the
there you go.
pool.
We'll bring flowers. All right, thank you. Does anyone else have questions for Tammy? Is everyone ready to go home?
Yes.
All right, give me a motion.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second. We're adjourned.
Thanks,
Thank
Amy.
Thank you.